The Vethrak survey team came aboard on a Tuesday. I know this because I had just finished the lunch rotation and was scraping down the grill when I heard the docking clamps engage. 3 of them, which meant something heavier than a supply pod. I looked out the porthole above the prep sink and watched 4 figures in amber-plated carapace armor cross the docking bridge in single file, each carrying a flat scanner and what I can only describe as a very official clipboard. They did not come to the mess hall. I found out later, from Rova in engineering, that they had spent the first afternoon on the bridge, the second in the cargo bays, and the third running competency assessments on the navigation crew. Rova said they were thorough, precise. They had a form for everything: individual ratings, department ratings, equipment ratings, a separate column for what they called adaptive resourcefulness under field conditions. They filed all of it in real time, the data streaming back to whatever Vethrak administrative body had commissioned the survey. The Oreth Kos was a joint species vessel, human crew, Vethrak mission mandate, and the survey was, apparently, routine. Every 4 months. Nobody had told me this when I signed the contract. They passed the mess hall door on their way to engineering every morning. I could hear the soft click of their footplates on the corridor deck, the faint, high-pitched ping of the scanner logging another data point. The door has a small window. I watched them go by twice. The second time, the one in the lead, Kevath Toss, I learned later, survey lead, senior grade, glanced at the door and then looked away, just away, like the door was a wall. I went back to the soup. There were 12 of us on the human crew. The Vethrak had assessed 11 by the end of the first week. They had a liaison officer assigned to live aboard during the survey window, a younger one named Kevath Doss, who had a narrow amber crest and the social warmth of a very formal piece of furniture. He ate from his own ration packs and filed daily summaries from the corner table in the briefing room. He did not come to the mess hall either, that first week. I didn't take it personally. The Vethrak don't eat anything that requires heat to prepare. It's a metabolic thing, not rudeness. Though the distinction can feel academic when you're alone in a kitchen feeding 12 people 3 times a day, and none of the observers ever wander through to ask if you need anything. The survey log, which I saw much later, classified the mess hall as follows: non-essential support function, biological nutrition maintenance for human crew, below survey threshold, not assessed. That was on day 4. On day 9, Kevath Doss knocked on the mess hall hatch. Not the door, the hatch, the small one at the side that I use for pass-through when it's busy. I opened it. He was holding one of his ration packs and looking at it the way you look at something you have been eating for 9 days and have stopped being able to see clearly. He said, in the flat translation-rendered voice the Vethrak use through their collar units, "What is that smell?" It wasn't really a question. The stock had been going for 6 hours by then. A long bone broth I run on Tuesdays because we have the time and it keeps well. It smells like nothing so much as someone taking care of something. The Vethrak don't have a word for it. Or if they do, the collar unit renders it as sustained thermal substrate processing, which is accurate, but misses the point. I said, lunch. He stood there for a moment. His crest plates did something subtle, a faint lateral shift I'd come to understand, over the weeks, as the Vethrak equivalent of a pause. Not uncertainty, more like recalibration. Then he said, "Is it available?" I said it was. I gave him a bowl of the broth and a piece of the flatbread I'd made that morning. He took the tray to the corner table and ate it with the precise, careful movements of someone trying to remain officially uninvested in what they were doing. He came back the next day. He said nothing about it both times, and I said nothing about it, and that seemed to suit us both. By day 14 there were 3 of them. Not the survey team, Kevath Doss, and 2 of the junior Vethrak observers, who had apparently taken their lunch cues from him. They sat at the corner table and ate quietly, and filed back to the briefing room, and never mentioned it in any official capacity that I was aware of. I adjusted the batch size. I didn't ask why they'd started coming. You learn, in mess hall work, that the reasons people eat where they eat are usually simpler than the reasons they'd give you if you asked. The survey team continued to not assess the mess hall. Kevath Toss passed the hatch door every morning, with his scanner and his clipboard and his amber shoulder plates catching the corridor light, and every morning he looked through the small window and away in the same practiced, unhurried motion, and I went on making the soup. By day 22, 4 of the 5 Vethrak aboard were eating a midday meal in the mess hall. The Teveth toss was the exception. I noticed this without particularly noting it, the way you notice weather. By day 28, which was the last day of the survey window, Keveth Toss arrived in the briefing room to present the final competency report. I know this because Rova told me afterward, in some detail, because Rova has a gift for detail, and also finds the Vethrak survey process genuinely interesting in a way I have never managed to share. She had taken notes. She showed them to me over dinner that evening, sitting at the corner table with a mug of tea, pointing at things. The report was comprehensive. 11 crew positions assessed and rated. Navigation, above standard. Engineering, above standard. Medical, standard with 1 noted commendation. Cargo operations, above standard. Adaptive field repair, cross-trained competencies, non-standard problem resolution. All logged, all filed, all streaming back to the Vethrak administrative body in real time. It was, Rova said, a very good report. The survey lead presented it with the measured confidence of someone who had done this many times and found it reliable. There was one anomaly. Near the bottom of the final summary, not the main body, the summary, a flag. Automated, not filed by the survey lead. The mission continuity submodule had cross-referenced the liaison's daily intake logs against his pre-deployment nutritional baseline and found a sustained deviation. Caloric sourcing had shifted, across the survey window, from standard Vethrak ration protocol to an unlogged external source. The submodule had flagged this as a potential dependency. The dependency was unassessed. The survey, technically, was incomplete. Keveth Toss looked at the flag for a moment. Then he looked at Keveth Doss. Rova said Keveth Doss explained it in about 2 sentences. The explanation included the phrase, bone broth, rendered in Vethrak phonetics, which apparently does not translate smoothly, and the word dependency, rendered back in standard, so that the summary flag would understand it, and the observation that 3 additional observers had developed the same dependency over the course of the survey window, and that all 4 of them were, by any reasonable metric, functioning at full capacity, and then some. The survey lead filed a supplemental addendum. It reads in its entirety, nutritional infrastructure, human contractor, unassessed, mission critical. Recommend assessment inclusion in future survey cycles. Note: access point is the mess hall hatch, port side, below the porthole. I didn't read any of this until Rova showed me the addendum 3 days later. By then Keveth Toss had departed with the rest of the survey team. The docking clamps had released in the same order they'd engaged, and the Oreth Kos was back on its regular rotation. Keveth Doss stayed aboard. His posting runs another 4 months. He came to the hatch the morning after the survey team left. He had his empty bowl from the day before, which he'd washed and returned, which I'd noticed but not mentioned. He stood at the hatch and looked at the stockpot, which was going again because it was Tuesday. He didn't say anything. I handed him the bowl. He took it back to the corner table, and I went back to the grill, and that was more or less that. The survey was complete. The mess hall had been assessed. The report would go into the Joint Vessel Administrative Archive and probably inform the next survey cycle. And somewhere in the Vethrak administrative body, a form would be updated to include a line for non-essential support functions, biological nutrition, human contractor, mission critical. I thought that was probably fair. I'd been making the soup since day 1 after all.